Hey, everybody. Welcome to the William and Monty Show. We are here to discuss and exchange concepts, ideas, everything that we've been working on, along with what we've been hearing out there. Monty, I hand it over to you.
William, well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate you on the accuracy of all your predictions. I've been following you for a while, a long time, trying to get everybody I know to follow you, because I think you're definitely one of the best astrologers alive right now. And your predictions about the election and about Bitcoin and crypto in general have just been so literally on the money. So that's the first thing I'd like to do is congratulate you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's been, I've been doing this Bitcoin thing back in 2000, late 2010, early 2011. So it's like, to me, it's just that it's like I've been riding this horse for a while. So I appreciate the compliments and the appreciation, but it's just basically doing what you and I do every day when we work with clients, and just instead of looking at and trying to just reframing the astrology from the standpoint of the user case of the crypto, right? Of the actual token or currency or whatever I'm looking at, and then seeing what that means in terms of the network effect. Because really the value of crypto, and we'll talk more about this later when we get deeper into the Saturn Uranus, which is something I know we wanted to talk about today, because the Saturn Uranus square alignment is exact today. And that's very much connected with what's happening with crypto. But, that being said, a lot of what we're seeing here is the network effect.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what really crypto is all about, because what's Bitcoin? It's essentially a network.
Right.
What DeFi? What is Cardano? All we're essentially doing is buying in. We have the belief that this particular coin or decentralized network or system, depending on or token, right? We're buying into the network. It's the value of the network effect of this technology, of this new technology, that is going to drastically, radically, and disruptively change our entire financial system and money as we know it.
Exactly. And people should remember that around the 1900s, they used to call automobiles horseless carriages. And we're in the stage right now where people are trying to use what was in the past to describe crypto and what's coming in. And just like it's not really a horseless carriage, what we're using, it's like the other day you explained to me, no, you're not going to have to convert it back to money. You're going to be able to use it to buy things off your phone, eliminating the banks. I mean, that's the lead that's buried in that story is right. It's not what you think. It's not a horseless carriage. It's it's a rocket ship.
It's a rocket ship. It's I would say it's like a starship.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, so that's the thing. It's like the need to go back into fiat cash in order to for trade settlement, for profit, is going to become something where people will look at you and say, who does that anymore within a couple of years?
Yeah, but the problem is not everybody understands it like you. And so when it's explained, and even people who are experts like you, it's like one of the reasons that Karma Cards works is because I remember Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. Because it's easy for me to put myself in the head of someone who knows nothing. When someone knows as much as you do, like you would think it's obvious to people that you're going to hold your phone up just like you do with PayPal, whatever, or with Apple Pay or whatever. You're just going to hold it up and you're going to pay like that. No banks involved. But I didn't see it until you explained it to me, because sometimes the easy, obvious stuff is not obvious to like an idiot like me who didn't know anything about it.
Well, you're just not informed, and you're getting informed. And I want to congratulate you, because a lot of people with your background and your age group have resisted this, especially the metaphysical folks.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's very few people within their mid to late 60s, early 70s that are doing
71, January 22nd.
Congratulations. And you're a young 71, right?
Thank you.
That helps. But a lot of people, I'm sure people in your peer group, in the backyard of Long Island who've been doing the metaphysical things going back into the mid 80s are just totally either clueless, ignorant, or just willfully ignorant and resistant
Yeah.
to taking this leap. So I want to
Well,
congratulate
scared.
you on that.
Thank you. Thank you. And now that I've taken the leap, it's another thing to learn, which is wonderful because that's what life is all about, the journey. And you know, even I, and being an okay boomer, I love that expression. Okay, okay, boomer. Whenever I would think about it, I'd say, well, PayPal is crypto, and actually my bank account is just online as crypto, and it's just numbers on a screen. Everyone's like, oh, you buy Bitcoin, it's nothing real. Well, guess what? If the banks don't open tomorrow, your money's not real either,
Exactly.
And if the ATM gets shut down, your money's not real. So there are arguments that people in my age group, the boomers, have that don't hold water.
They don't hold water. And let me tell you something. If the banks are down and you're trying to take your gold out of your basement to get it swapped for physical dollars, you're out of business too, because that's the last thing that anybody's going to do. I mean, if you cannot, first of all, everything's completely run by the internet and by electricity. So even holding gold and silver is not really a viable strategy in a technological civilization.
Right.
Long term. Short term, yes, it is, because obviously we're going to have a massive wealth transfer and reset that's imminent and inevitable this year. Right. So
yeah, well, that's the Uranus Saturn thing in a nutshell, really.
Right. And so having gold for that purpose, yes. But in terms of if the electricity's down, I at least have my gold. That just doesn't work either. So,
well, I don't know if I ever told you, but I was friendly with a man who was the head of the largest gold commodities trading firm on Comdex. He was like a second father to me. And I said to him once, should I buy gold in case, the S hits the fan?
Right.
And I said, and it gets really bad. He said, if it gets that bad, you don't want gold, you want lead.
That's right. You want ammo and guns.
Exactly.
Right. So look, going back, I mean, we go back to the era when the baby boomers came to power. In other words, when they started exerting their power in society was during the Saturn-Uranus opposition aspect between 1966, 67, right? Actually between 64 to 67, they had Saturn-Uranus dancing back and forth from each other.
Right. And Uranus and I think Pluto were together too, right?
Yes, absolutely. So that sort of put fire, right? That put gas on the fire.
Right.
But that Uranus-Saturn, or I should say Saturn-Uranus, had very much to do with the type of changes that the baby boomers initiated in the 60s through the counterculture revolution.
Right.
And so it'll be interesting to see. We may see a lot of those baby boomers that went from being radical liberals to conservatives, or let's say sort of a weird form of conservatives. I mean, they vote liberal, but they operate in a very conservative place, or they're much more centrist at the very least.
Yeah, and they're very materialistic. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think Theodore has such a big problem with baby boomers.
Right. So we may see a lot of baby boomers now going back to their original roots, but this time through sticking it to the man, right? Doing it differently instead of through flower power, through decentralized tokens.
Yeah. Security tokens. Well, yeah. And look what happened with the election. If I would have told some of these people that one day you're going to A, believe what they say on television news, and B, you're going to think that some politician is going to save your ass, they would have thought I was crazy. The ravings of a lunatic. Because back in the 60s, the baby boomers, nobody believed what they said on the news, and nobody believed what they said in the newspaper. And nobody, because they were talking about the Vietnam War and we're winning it and we're, this and that. Nobody. Right. And today it's like, well, CNN says, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Right.
I mean, what's wrong with you?
Right. So, when the baby boomers would say, never trust anyone over the age of 30, and that was basically pointed to the establishment, and the media, and the politicians are the very ones today believing everything the media and financial media is saying. My stocks are good. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Don Lemon on CNN said so that's the way it is.
Yep. There you go. And I get every day Amy and I are getting 5 or 6 people saying, are you going to take the vaccine? And I'm like, nope, you ain't getting me into that one, because that is a personal choice. There's enough information out there. You make the decision. Do not get, that's like the time I actually had and this was sad. I had someone say, should I keep the baby? I said, you're asking me if you should keep your baby? Some cockamamie astrologer that you don't really know? You know, people there. Okay, my mother was mentally ill. I learned at an early age there are people that are absolutely batshit crazy out there, and I think personally, believing CNN and all this other stuff and not doing your due diligence, it's crazy. It's just crazy. When the internet exists, when the computers can do all this amazing stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, I think what the baby boomers need to do is go back to their roots. That's really what the call of action is with the Saturn Uranus square that's been operative. I mean, we have the first alignment today, and that will be in effect. If we just take a look at this graph here, let me switch here.
Well, let me wait a minute. I can do that too. I'm gonna.
There we go. Match. Right, Saturn Uranus square alignment right here, and you can see we're in it today. This is today, and we'll be in it all the way until late January 2023.
Right.
So, you know, where the baby boomers were overthrowing structures, right? They were resisting the establishment. They were social revolutionaries. They were seeking political change. They were seeking social justice, all of that, right? We're going to start seeing that constellate, not just with them, right? But also we're going to see it constellate with the Generation X and the millennials and the coming to age Gen Zers. And that will be the energy that binds all 4 generations.
Right, as they all labor under the Great Reset.
Absolutely. And I think the reset is going to be the thing that makes us aware that we're all in this together.
I think you're 100% right. I couldn't have said it any better. I mean, Saturn Uranus, people know intellectually that it does sort of mean, you know, New World Order. You know, because Saturn is order and Uranus is new. And I mean, I'm oversimplifying, right? But and one of the interesting things about all the stuff that's going on lately is it's all happening under intense conjunctions. Like today, here's the Saturn square, right? So here's Uranus, and it's right next to the moon in Taurus, and here's Saturn in Aquarius.
Yeah.
So and which is you know, it's not really that close to Pluto, but it's close enough to Mercury and a little close to Jupiter. There's all this intense conjunction activity going on. It's crazy.
Right. You could see it right now.
Yeah.
So you have this Mercury Saturn conjunct square this moon Uranus right on the midheaven. In fact, as we're speaking right now, if we take the time right now, I think we got Uranus moon right on the midheaven. It's just interesting that we're talking about the generations, right?
Yes.
The civil strife and insurgency that was going on in the 60s and how we're seeing that now, along with, I don't know if you were into the markets back then or where.
No, I was not.
There were major unexpected market corrections that occurred sometime around 66. And then again in 69, major ones that initiated the type of economic problems we had in the 70s. So we're going to see that play out again.
I know. I was homeless then. Actually, I was homeless. So and it's not like everybody had a TV or whatever computer to see what was going on. If you didn't hear it on the radio or see it on television or in the newspaper, it did not exist. Like there was a pandemic much worse than the one we're going through now. Nobody locked down. No one wore a mask. No one gave a crap about it at all during 68 and 69.
Right. Absolutely. But the difference was, that was a pandemic. This is a plandemic.
Yes, yes, exactly. Because it was part of the whole election process, which we won't discuss at this very minute. But I think it's interesting that you said Uranus and the moon are in Taurus, because in my experience, I don't know how this is in your experience as a reader, but moon in Taurus people, especially if it's conjunct Jupiter in Taurus, these people will cope with anything. They will stay with someone when they should leave. They will stay in a job when they should leave, you know, because Taurus wants to show how strong they are. So, and Uranus is not a happy camper in Taurus. And I think I've said this on your show before, when last time Uranus was in Taurus and Neptune was in Pisces was during the run up to the American Civil War.
Absolutely.
Nice.
And we are in the same situation now. In fact, I wanted to talk to you about the fact that we're in the last day of the Chinese New Year in terms of the celebration cycle.
Wow.
So the official year, I mean, actually official Chinese New Year, there's two types of New Year's. There's the solar New Year, which starts on February 3rd or 4th, when the sun reaches 315 degrees of zodiacal longitude, which would be equivalent to 15 degrees of Aquarius.
Huh.
And then it's the new moon. It's the new moon. So the solar lunar New Year starts on the new moon, and then you have the traditional. So essentially, in terms of how it was celebrated, if you go back 5,000 plus years to the first official time when the Yellow Emperor took power, and it was that was the time he was inaugurated and crowned or declared the Emperor of all China. That was the first official Chinese New Year, the year he took power. It was on the day of a new moon. So the new moon just occurred, and we're in that cycle. And what's interesting talking about this, well, this Aquarius, is the fact that you see what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 planets in Aquarius square Uranus.
Wow. Wow. Which rules Aquarius for those of you who don't know astrology.
Right. So this is, I just think it's fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
And what's interesting is on the very day, just on the very day, within days or within a day of this exact alignment, we've seen the creation of the world's first slaughter-free steak using three-dimensional bioprinting, using real cells from a cow. This is how it was made, and this is what it looked like after it was cooked.
Wow. That's crazy. You know, it's very interesting that you say the Yellow Emperor took power 5,000 years ago, because that sort of correlates with the Jewish calendar. Mm-hmm. And Zechariah Sitchin's interpretation of the Sumerian cuneiforms indicating that 5,000, whatever the Jewish calendar is, was when the leader of Nibiru came down because the gold miners had rebelled, and the Anunnaki were all about gold. And here we are talking about gold 5,000 years later, and Bitcoin, which is always pictured as a gold coin. I mean, there are silver ones too, but you know, and Saturn used to rule Aquarius before Uranus was rediscovered.
That's right. And by the way, the Chinese New Year of 2021 is officially called the Year of the Golden Ox. It's metal, right? Because it's metal, but it's according to practitioners, feng shui practitioners, they're calling it the Year of the Golden Ox.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Well, full disclosure, I happen to be a wooden ox. I was born January 22nd, 1950, just over the border into the ox. So I'm hoping, I guess this is the year that I become the golden ox and learn about crypto.
That's right. Because metal deals with technology, in Chinese astrology. Yeah. So I just noticed the correlations with technology and the ox. The ox has very much to do with money, stability, security, economy, cash. The concept of, I guess, cash is really a token of wealth, right? It represents whether it's.
Well, there you have my baby's booming resistance to crypto. And one of the things about Amy and I is we make a product and we sell it. That's like, we don't have any investments except now I'm, sticking my toe in the crypto market, but we've never trusted it because I'm an ox. So I want to,
You want something that's tangible, right?
Tangible.
Well, here's my prediction. My prediction is you will begin to virtualize everything you physically created.
Well, I think I have to, because we have too much crap in this house. And I mean, we can mine our house we're finding stuff we didn't even know we had. And this is, thank you so much for showing this. This is my first book, which is Karma Cards, which came out in 1988 and has been in continuous print. And it introduces people to astrology. And you also have, thank you, the cover of the next book, which is coming out in the spring, Mindful Astrology, which I actually talk about the sun, moon, and the rising sign.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I wanted it to be a rising sign book, but they wouldn't go for it.
Why?
Welcome to the world of publishing. No one's going to buy it. The first thing they ask is, who's going to buy this book? They They wanted sun sign. You know, it's the pull between, we want a straight sun sign book. You Aquarians are this, you Taurus are that, which you and I both know is limited. So I said, look, we got to at least have the moon, and I want to put something about the rising sign. So I did.
Mhm.
And
Excellent.
yeah,
It
because the
it
rising
seems like
sign so important. The rising sign is so important.
absolutely. So it seems like we need to have a decentralized publishing sector. A
Well, you know, it's
decentralized.
interesting you say that. I think that's probably going to happen. Though now they're starting to wake up, and like I've been asked to do a new divination system like karma cards. We're going to do it about intuition. I think decentralized maybe you can run the business.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean,
Absolutely.
well,
I
you
think
sort of
decentralized
are.
publishing is coming now because of these very things. We have these stopgaps. We have these key holders, these editors, these people. I mean, it's sort of a form of censorship when you're the expert as the writer, the
Yes.
author, and they're telling you what to keep in and what to take out. I mean, that to me, um, that
Ha!
to me is just a form of a very sophisticated form of censorship.
Well, you're absolutely right, but you're sort of doing that because Global Transformational Astrology is a publishing house, and you publish your webinars, and then now you're going to be doing the crypto thing, right? You're doing a crypto organization.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a crypto group. It's going to be a 3-tier group. We're going to just start the first tier at the end of this month. We've been informing all our members and everyone on my mailing list, and we also put some information out there in some of the social media groups. And the first one will be just the essential must invest coins, and informing them. People don't know what a Unisys is. They don't understand what Chainlink is. They go beyond Bitcoin. This is certainly beyond Bitcoin. This is
Well,
certainly
right,
beyond Litecoin. It's beyond the idea of a cryptocurrency coin. It's now talking about introducing some of the concepts of decentralized finance. And
right.
then the second tier will start up sometime later, and we're going to talk about the more exotic technologies and altcoins, if you will,
Uh-huh.
that are extremely speculative but can move over 1,000x inside of a
And
month
have done. Some of
and
them
have
have
done.
done it already.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So example, like, the tier 1 will talk about Uniswap, but the tier 2 will talk more about Pancake Swap and Sushi Swap, and those are much more speculative. However, the upside potential is tremendous. However, the downside potential, where you could go from, let's say, I don't know the price of Sushi Swap at the moment, but let's say it's like 1 cent. It can go from 1 cent to $1,000 back to zero inside of 6 months, depending, or it could be the biggest hit that eventually supplants Uniswap and becomes the top 10 coins with the highest market capitalization. And when I say coin, I'm using a
Right.
because it's be
It's a
what's
security token, right?
it's a security token, and actually the Sushi Swap is actually a decentralized finance environment ecosystem where they have a token, a sushi, right? So it's just so I have to really explain this out. So one will be like, hey, if you just want, you know, for most people, tier 1 will be sufficient. But to those people that saying, William, I'm willing to invest 50,000 and willing to lose it, because if I could find one winner out of all
Yeah.
of these new
That's
emerging
what they do.
technologies,
Yeah.
right, I could make more money than I ever did on Bitcoin.
Right.
So the other thing too is, so it's really much more about rampant, the type of speculation that, but at the same time, and then I'll have a third tier for those who want more one-on-one and a much more of a VIP experience. And that's something I'll develop later on for those individuals.
Which tier will you be talking about staking? Because I find that fascinating.
Yeah,
The
we're going to talk
concept.
about staking in the first tier, right? And those
Wow,
are
that's
just some
great.
basic concepts that people need to understand what that means.
Oh Jesus! I hear I was feeling so great that I even knew what the word meant, and that's in tier 1. Oh Jesus!
Yeah, that's tier 1, and then we'll get into the more sophisticated, where there'll be more sophisticated concepts that will be in tier 2, but they are not. Let's just say they're not established yet, even within the crypto. They're very cutting edge. So in other words, everything we understand about finance based on the stock exchange, based on the limitations of what we understand about banking and stocks and
The
bonds.
horseless carriage.
Right. Is all going to be completely rewritten. Think about it.
Yeah.
It's almost the equivalent of like, listen to the music in the 30s, Benny Goodman, great
Right.
music. I have plenty of Benny Goodman records here.
You should. You're a clarinetist.
I'm a clarinetist. And then think of the Beatles.
Yeah.
All right. That leap. Imagine if we made that leap instead of 30 years in 30 months.
Right. Or like John Cage. You know?
Right. If you're going to stick with the classical genre. But I'm saying if you turn on a radio in 1935, you would have Benny Goodman. And then if you turn on a radio in 1965, you would have the Beatles. Right.
Right.
And it'd be like, whoa, I'm in a different planet. And that's not going to take 30 years, folks. For those of you, right. It's going to take 30 months.
Right. Right.
And it's going to be a whole different world. And Wall Street, in fact, I put an article today into the GTA group, which is Saturn Uranus square alignment 2021 to 2022 tokenization of markets. Everything is going to become a token on a decentralized platform, and you'll be able to trade Ford Motor Company. You'll be able to do anything with any derivative product on Wall Street on your Uniswap or Sushi Swap or Pancake Swap, right? DeFi, decentralized finance system. You'll just log in.
Oh yeah, and it's happening already. I mean, look what happened with the Reddit group that crushed all those short squeezes on what was it, like the not Blockbuster, but you know, things like that.
GameStop. The
exactly.
GameStop fiasco with Robinhood, and I addressed this in the article. Where it's not a long article. I try and make my articles very brief because I know people like have they've got a life outside of astrology, right?
Sure.
Even astrologists for that matter. So, with tokenized. So in other words, if you have tokenized shares of GameStop on a decentralized exchange like Uniswap, for instance, right? The risk and reward of lending securities are only taken by those willing and wanting to accept the risk. And they're also paid for by those taking the risk. So trade settlement happens immediately. There's no counterparty risk. There's no third party. There's no Wall Street. There's no hedge fund. There's no Robinhood. It's direct. And this type of thing, right?
It scares the crap out of them.
Because you don't need Wall Street anymore.
Hello. Yeah, that's why they're resistant to it. That's why they tried to crush it.
That's right. So in a tokenized world like the Lehman default, which happened in 2008, which almost collapsed our financial system, we were hours away from having, right, like the value of $1 would be worth zero.
Yeah, it was almost bread lines for sure.
It would be exactly. It would be complete. So if we had that technology back in 2008, and we had Uniswap and Sushi Swap and Pancake Swap and all these swap mechanisms, these tokenized. Everything was tokenized in a decentralized world. That type of crisis would have been avoided with real-time collateral managed and priced based on, in other words, these systems are AI self-aware. They don't need, it's like markets that don't need any managers, don't need any brokers, right? And Ponzi schemes like Bernie Madoff, if you remember in 2008, right?
Oh, yeah.
Are impossible to perpetrate as regulators can more easily see, right? The software, the regulation software, the AI can see if there are any actual assets in these trades. So that's why, people think, well, William, I'm not into the stock market. Let's just talk about how I'm feeling today, right? The Saturn Uranus is way beyond just how people are feeling.
Well, yeah, because the whole shift, the whole Saturn Pluto conjunction, the whole paradigm shift took the Aquarian age from, Amazon's knocking out the stores. And all of a sudden, fifth gear, we're in Aquarian age. We're totally disrupted. And you can't say, maybe I'll work at home. Everyone's got to work at home. So all this Aquarian stuff just went from 0 to 60 in a few seconds. But if you don't think that the World Economic Summit is right now trying to plot a way to figure out how they can own the whole crypto blockchain, whatever, and supposedly it can't be done.
It can't be done. I mean,
But they're
yes, I
trying to
understand the
figure it out right
technology,
now.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what
So,
they're trying to do.
well, right.
Davos.
So they can't centralize a decentralized currency or decentralized ecosystem or decentralized finance mechanism. They cannot do it. It's impossible.
But that's why they're locking us down.
Well, and there's other reasons as well. I mean, look at the fact here that you've got all of these planets. You actually have 7, right? 6 in Aquarius, and including Pluto, all in the second house for the year of the ox. Notice
Unbelievable.
that. Right. What is
Unbelievable.
the second house? You know what the second house is all about.
Your value system on the spiritual level and your possessions on the material.
Right. Money, currency, what you
Yeah.
consider an asset, or what the world considers an asset versus a liability, which would be the eighth house.
Right. Other people's money.
Right. Other people's money or anything like that is a debt instrument, or you owe debt to the IRS or to your creditors. So credit is really a form of debt. That would be your credit cards, all that
Yeah.
stuff. Mortgages. So we're going to see drastic shifts this year, and it's going to come out of China. And
Yeah.
and it's all connected to this fourth industrial revolution,
Yeah.
fourth industrial technological revolution. And look at this. Look at this. This comes directly from the World Economic Forum.
Oh, yeah.
You will own nothing and you'll be happy. This is how our world could change by 2030. We should put will change.
And that's the scariest thing I think I've ever seen is that guy's face.
Right. And he's a Gen Zer. I mean, he looks about 20 years old around.
but
he's a Gen Zer.
That's the patriarchy pointing a gun at us. The patriarchy wants, everything you need to know about this is what we know. No, guess what? It's not. But the that's why I would like to see more of the feminine, more of the matriarchy come in, because that kind of stuff, you'll own nothing. That's your father talking. That's big brother. It's not big sister.
Well, that's Saturn Uranus. Saturn Uranus rules Big Brother. Saturn Uranus rules cancel culture. Saturn Uranus rules for thee and not for we.
You're right. It's yes. Oh my God. It can be scary. Because as an Aquarian, I've been looking forward to the Aquarian age for a long time, but I forgot, I have my shadow side, obviously. So the Aquarian age has a big shadow side. It's the Aquarian Leo polarity to me. So everybody is a star, humanity versus Leo.
Right.
So everybody can be a star, but to say you'll own nothing as a star, you'll own nothing. That's not very.
Look back. If you just go back in history, Roman slave elites, the slavocracy elites, were replaced by the medieval feudal elites in 800 AD. That was followed by the medieval feudal elites being replaced by industrial elites in 1700. Then the industrial elites were replaced by the financial elites starting 1920, around that
we
time.
know where that led to 1929 to 32.
Bingo. And 2000 and 2008.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now we have the financial elites are being replaced by a technocratic elite, which started in 2020.
Right. And they bought all the governments around the world.
Right. So it's like we're seeing changes. The Saturn Uranus is showing an overthrow. There's an overthrow of societies, and like, in other words, the power base is being overthrown, and the Saturn Uranus is galvanizing the larger Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto triple alignment that was operative and still operative, by the way, all the way through 2023. So I think we're seeing that like a self-conscious AI, a technocratic Leviathan, if you will, a society, right, where and revolutionary changes that are overturning, right, a paradigm shift of revolutionary changes that are going to impact every aspect of our society, which correlates, by the way, with the fourth great spiritual awakening, which
now you've come back into my wheelhouse.
Yes.
No, but because that's the only way you could deal with it. When you can't trust anything that anybody's telling you, if you're not in a spiritual place, you won't hear your intuition telling you what's going on. But I just want to say that you're one of the elites of the new, the new. No,
I
you
am.
are, because knowledge is power. And by offering your crypto class, and this is not an advertisement, this is a fact. By offering your great wisdom to people like myself, I'm going to definitely join. You're helping to create the technocratic elite of people who can, maybe they don't need banks and all this other stuff. They're going to be able to trade on their own. So that's kind of cool.
That's right. And so that goes very much against this soulless Marxist philosophy that being pushed out by the radical left in the United States and also the radical left in Europe. And of course, the Chinese Communist CCP. That's the underpinning behind all of the leftist movements. They're funding and supporting those leftist movements. We have a leftist agent in the White House right now, an illegitimate leftist agent, right? Certainly the vice president, who's now taking more of a presidential role. All of this goes against what we're talking about here, this fourth industrial revolution, the fourth great spiritual awakening. And we could talk more about that next time, because I wanted to talk about the first great spiritual awakening, the second, the third, and the fourth. And I have charts for all four of them with historical consensus behind it. But we're in the fourth one now, and there's an awakening where, that goes contrary. This is a contrarian movement that goes against this Marxist socialist top-down doctrine that's being implemented and rolled out by the World Economic Summit, the Great Reset Initiative, starting on August this year.
Yeah, which is another Saturn Uranus kind of ass kicking.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to go to the spiritual thing, right? Because people will say, "Hey, William, stop talking about Bitcoin. Let's get to the spiritual stuff, because that's only what astrology is good at." I've had actually astrologists say this to me, as if.
I don't understand why you waste your time with those people. I don't have anything to do with it.
I'm not even wasting my time. I'm just trying to say what we're, one of the things I think we're trying to do is open up people. Like, astrology is just not about, how good you feel or why you're feeling bad, or how could, I seduce this person easier, which is sign, baby. Right.
Oh God.
I think that what we could also talk about is, yes, these things, these spiritual awakenings are real. They correlate with these major alignments. And the Saturn Uranus, this is where your expertise comes in. This Saturn Uranus correlates with the Judgment card in tarot. So I want you to talk more about that.
Well, first of all, I want people to know that I'm the author of the Enchanted Tarot. And this is the Enchanted Tarot that my wife did. It came out in 1990. It's been in continuous print. And here's my favorite part of the cover. Wait. Oh, over 250,000 copies sold.
Wow.
Yeah. But I think what we're talking about here is the spiritual underpinning of the 60s, not the bullshit and the drugs and all the other stuff. But believe it or not, the whole thing in the 60s and the boomers, maybe we have a chance to redeem ourselves, even in Theodore's eyes, because that would be a trip if we could do that, is because it all started off about consciousness. Today I was on television, or actually not television, now you call it Zoom. And I was talking about books that affected me. And here's one that did. Be Here Now by Richard Alpert. It all started with a spiritual awakening. That's the whole point of the 60s. That's what all the drugs were for, was supposedly not just to get you stoned, but to get you high, to get you in touch with God, whatever you consider God or the goddess. I now think of God as a woman, but that's just me. And I think when people have the spiritual awakening that you're talking about, it's the only way you can be anchored is to float. That's the Neptune is in Pisces now. So your spiritual anchoring is a very, very loose kind of floating kind of, I don't want to say wasu, because I once had that done. It made me nauseous for days, but that kind of, I think it's time for true spirituality.
I mean, it's interesting that Neptune in the chart, at least for Washington, D.C. at the time of the Saturn-Uranus square, is right on the 9th house.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That's the house of God. That's the house of connecting with the divine. And it certainly has to do with higher learning. So the higher learning is channeled, right, through creative and inspirational impulses into society. And this is definitely part of that awakening, this fourth awakening that is beginning.
Yeah. And didn't we have, I mean, we had the Galactic Center activated by the eclipse, right? I mean, you know,
Right. That's right. That's right. But I want you to go, let's talk about judgment here. We could get back to that, but
sure,
let's talk about judgment.
The judgment card is the 21st card of the major arcana. The major arcana represents the fool's journey from 0. The fool card is a 0 to 21, which is actually the 22nd. If you're into numerology, you know 22 is the master builder. And so the last card is the world. The next to the last card is judgment. And it is portrayed in the Rider-Waite deck by the picture of people of a trumpet blasting, the last trumpet, and the souls rise from the dead. And because it's prepared to be judged by God or by yourself or however you want to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So the judgment card can, once again, like in astrology, it can mean a lot of things. One of the things it means is you're almost finished, because the 22nd card, the world, means is the completion of a major spiritual cycle. The 21st card is it's like the day before final exams. With all that kind of emotion too, you know, and where people stay up late and get drunk and do drugs or whatever, and just you know, they kill themselves. And at the same time, there's people that are just studying hard because prepare to be judged.
So, right. So there's an accountability factor. You will be accounted for. You will be accounted for that period, right, being addressed, which in the symbolically is the life of an individual, or the individual's life, and it will be by a higher power, right?
Yes.
Okay. So taking that concept and putting it within the context of Saturn Uranus, how do you think that all fits together?
The judgment card with Saturn Uranus?
Yeah, like taking what we know about Saturn Uranus, right?
Well, it's
being like go ahead.
It's accepting the fact that things are about to change profoundly. And what you were saying about how what has been dormant in people, you know, the spiritual awakening has been very dormant. You know, it's not, it's, first of all, I don't find it an accident that the pandemic happened after people had so much political hate on all sides of the political spectrum. And I've been warning people about this on my, you know, on Facebook for the longest amount of time, since before 2016. You can't hate people and not expect to get sick. So because I've always studied health. By the way, this is the judgment card in our Enchanted Tarot. You'll notice there's an angel. My wife did this as 78 tapestries. And it's an angel blowing a trumpet, and you see this hand rising up out of the grave.
Very beautiful.
It's all about being called to action.
Right.
You know, even the dead are called to action. It's a Pluto card. I know we're not talking about in concept of Pluto, but it's all about resurrection. It's a time of powerful. I mean, we're talking about raising the dead. So it's
almost like removing the fear of death as well.
Yes, well, exactly. And people who are resisting, I know you don't want to talk about crypto, but
it's fine. It's fine.
Oh no, I'm just saying that, you know, the people who are afraid of it have the fear of death because it requires that they die. All the things that they believed about things in the past die.
So it actually implies a successful transformation, because transformation, like Pluto, is decline, death, right?
And
Transformation, resurrection.
Which you're always talking about.
And resurrection are one and the same.
Yeah, but one of the things I love about your presentations that I've seen, even the ones that I'm not on, excuse me, I'm a Leo rising, so I can say that, even the ones I'm not on, is the fact that you have talked about that when you got really passionate and would say, listen, people, I'm talking about death and rebirth, and it's not easy. That's 100% true, because, you know, as somebody who's done the work on myself, growing up in a very difficult situation, but not as difficult as growing up in Kosovo, I know that, and all that other stuff. But yes, it requires work. It requires facing your fears. It requires facing your pain, facing the fact that you don't know everything. I think one of the Pluto and Leo baby boomer problems is they think they know everything. But
don't they?
Sure.
Well, you know what? What's interesting about that? It's interesting you say that. Like, a lot of the baby boomers that came of age during the counterculture, they had a certain profound knowledge for such an early age that many of that basically shaped and transformed the culture, like John Lennon, for instance, right?
100%.
Who was way ahead of his time.
Way ahead of his time. And how about the Kinks writing a song called "I'm Not Like Everybody Else"?
Right, exactly.
I don't know if you've ever heard that song. That is profound spiritual wisdom in a rock and roll song. I'm not, you know, I don't want to be destroyed. Like these people were 17, 18 years old, 20 years old doing these songs.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Incredible.
Right. So, you know, it'd be interesting to take a look at the chart of when that song first came out. I actually was doing quite a bit of astrology on these songs that shaped and influenced our culture. For example, White Rabbit, I published that a number of times in Facebook and talked about when the song came out, why it was significant, what the chart said about the song, but how it was revolutionary in shaping and transforming the society. I would say the GI generation dominated society of that period.
When you say GI, you mean soldiers?
Well, the GIs who are now in their 40s and 50s or late 30s, 40s.
You mean from World War II?
From World War II, GI generation. They're the ones who won the war.
Yeah, but you got to remember when you say GI to most people today, they think you're talking about gastro and intestinal tracts.
Oh, I see. GI generation. Okay, I'm using terms that.
No, I understand, but what you're saying is true. And plus, there were a lot of people who were stoned, and when they heard White Rabbit, that made a lot of sense for some bizarre, anything with Alice in Wonderland always works out for some reason.
Right.
It's like fart jokes. You always get laughs with fart jokes. If you mention White Rabbit or anything with Alice in Wonderland, it always works for the trippy people because she used to eat things and grow big and eat things and grow small. So, it all made a lot of sense. But the drugs ended up being slave food. It's the food you give to your slaves to keep them down. And that's why they retreated from actual political power and went into material stuff.
Well, yeah, I think what was interesting is the psychedelics of the era triggered a spiritual awakening process, right? They triggered it because they're considered entheogens. They call them entheogens today. And when you take them within the right set and setting, then they have a very powerful transformative effect on you, right?
Yes, if it's guided.
Right. If it's guided, again, set and setting is everything. And people can go through like 6 years of therapy within 6 hours, right? They go through an awakening process, a dark night of soul, if you will. Some people do, right? Which actually then is very, they walk through the valley of the shadow of death, right? To prepare their mind, to prepare their psyches for a conscious upgrade that follows in the second half of the psychedelic experience. And I think that galvanized the generation. What happened was later on is this happened to Lennon. He went from LSD to heroin, right? And that's what brought down that height, right? What I'm saying is that,
well, he went from trying to integrate his personality to trying to escape his personality.
Correct. So there's the dark side, but it didn't do that for everyone. I know a lot of people that took LSD to finally admit it to me who are like 70 years old, in readings I've done in confidence with me, where they could discuss this and said, yes, this is transformative, but this is something I can't even tell my spouse.
Well, but I never took it, and neither did Amy. For some, we never did. I did take mushrooms once, which now what do they call ayahuasca, or they call?
Yeah, well, those are considered entheogens. Oh, you took a mushroom that's called ayahuasca, or you took a mushroom?
No. Back then it was called mushrooms.
Well, look, you don't need to take an entheogen to have a spiritual awakening.
No,
right?
But that's the whole point. That's the whole point. You don't need it. And I'm not somebody who's like a Mayan shaman who's prepared my whole life to do it, and then you do it. Right. Now, it's just like what's unfortunately happening today. Kids are getting high at 12 years old and 10 years old.
Right.
That's not good.
And that's what I wanted to get. Like, there's part of these awakenings, there's different stages, right? And right now with the Saturn Uranus, we're feeling a pervasive sense of unhappiness, despondency, feeling loss. Often we could say that's the COVID. That's the reason, but it's really going beyond COVID. I mean, COVID certainly brought it to the fore, but there's a lot of people are feeling this great looming emptiness inside of them, right? They
That's the
feel it's got to be
judgment card.
more.
That's the judgment. Now you're talking about the judgment
Exactly.
card.
That's where I want to go, where they're like due to a life crisis, and now they're in judgment, in a state of judgment. They're on the precipice of a divorce, a breakup, a death, a trauma, an illness.
Well, yeah, because
COVID,
they've
major
been
life
hit with.
change.
They,
Yeah.
Okay, so it's what it's done is it's sort of put all of us into that grave from the judgment card.
Right.
You know, you're in a grave by yourself. The people who are single, they don't have anybody to hug them. So they're
Right.
like orphans growing up in some of these rough countries. They don't get hugged, so they become psychotic. It's made everybody a monk in a Himalayan cave. Some people respond to that as, you know, okay, I'm in solitary, I'm going to use it to grow spiritually. Some people are like, let me the fuck out of here. I feel like I'm buried alive.
Right.
So the people that depended on distractions and addictions and whatever, they're screwed up. They're having a lot of problems right now. I see you're thriving now. I'm doing really well myself. Amy and I, we've never been happier in a lot of ways. We don't like to see everybody suffering, but we're trying to use this time in a productive way. I think if you use it as a productive way, then this time could be wonderful.
Well, I think also the shifting of perspectives, which is not easy, and, you know, perceiving reality from a totally different way, which is like the second half of the judgment. You know, first you're in your grave, you're in your coffin, it bursts open, you come out of the grave, and you see this angel, Gabriel, right? I think it's Gabriel.
Yeah, I think it
awakens, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, he's blowing the trumpet
blowing the trumpet.
It's the last trumpet. It's like last call.
Right. So you it's a wake up. It's like, whoa, you know, you feel alive, and reality, you see reality in a totally different way. And in that, there's sort of the meaning of life itself is sort of revealed in that, but there is an accountability that has to be addressed in order for that completion to be achieved, that completion, right? Or that breakthrough. Because from what I know about judgment, it implies breakthrough. It's not always a breakthrough, or it implies a process where breakthrough.
It's the biggest breakthrough in the whole tarot, actually.
Right. It implies well, what I'm just saying is, I always think of the world as the reward of the breakthrough, or a similar card, something similar, where the
you're
final
dancing.
Stage, right? Where you know that moment in 2001 where the
monkeys.
No, at the final scene, the death
scene.
Okay,
he's an old man.
Bowman goes through the monolith, and then he emerges as a star child. So I think the star child at the very end is like the world, but I think that moment when he dies and is he's retransformed as this embryo that passes through the monolith, right? That monolith, you could think of it as like Gabriel, is the moment of the judgment, right? That before we make that final transition into the world card, which would be the star baby, the star child, who's now becomes the Übermensch, right? The Superman, right? Which Nietzsche would think is the Superman. Yeah.
Now you're talking about you're going to have Antifa on you when you start talking.
Antifa, yeah.
Okay,
well,
so
go ahead.
This is the world card in the Enchanted Tarot, and if you'll notice, there's the world in the back, and she's dancing and looking at the whole thing that she's gone through.
Right.
And the world card, as I said before, represents graduation, but it's also the Wheel of Fortune in the tarot is like an astrology chart in the sense that it's a spiral. It's not necessary. I mean, if you really want to get into three-dimensional astrology, the chart is a spiral because they come around all the time.
Right. What's implied in 2001: A Space Odyssey, I've read the book several times, is that the star child is not the final evolutionary development of mankind. It's the beginning of the next stage of the evolution. And then at some point, right, mankind, when it will rise to the Übermensch level, but it still needs to go through a whole new process before it could even connect and understand the actual ETs that came down 4 million years prior, meaning that even the Übermensch is still not ready to have a direct relationship with our cosmological forebears.
Well, because they're not all as brave as Aries. I mean, no, I'm serious. I'm serious. You're an Aries. I mean, I'm an Aquarius, so we like the crazy newness. We'll plunge into it. You guys are like, bring it on.
You know? Yeah. What are we waiting for? Let's get going.
Right. I mean, the Aquarians are like, okay, here it is. Okay, I'll get through it. But the Aries are like, wait, it's over there. I'm going over there.
The hell with it. Right.
But no, because that's why. I mean, someone like yourself, you don't see that as a threat to your existence. You see it as a challenge to your existence. But so many people are seeing so much of what's going on today with COVID and the lockdowns as a threat to their very lives. So they're living in the state of
existential crisis.
Exactly. A gun pointed to their head.
Right. So this is the awakening. So you know, an existential crisis, all right, understood because of everything that's happening in the world, but the Saturn Uranus would indicate a breakthrough, finding an answer and experiencing a breakthrough. Not an easy thing.
No,
right?
That's the key.
Right. You know, so the big problem with the metaphysical community, and I have to say this, is, you know, a lot of spiritual bypassing. Like they think, oh, you know, you can have all the benefits of the world. You know, I'm talking about the card of the world, right? The world card in tarot, right? By doing some form of spiritual bypassing, right? They don't need to go through the process. And that is the big trap of what I see happening. Because, you know, where, you know, you seek enlightenment without dealing with the shadow, without dealing with the dark night of the soul, with not dealing with the sense of search for life purpose or the, you know, that process. It's not an easy process, but we're coerced into it regardless.
Right. It drives some people. I mean, some people think that they're bad just because they're human. Yeah.
Right.
It's like what Marianne Williamson said that is attributed a lot to Nelson Mandela about the problem is not that we're bad. The problem is that we think we're bad. And we're actually these wonderful people, you know, these wonderful beings. But yes, you can't create the samurai sword without heat and folding and breaking and crystalline structures being destroyed.
Right.
And that's what we're really talking about. And what it basically comes down to is you know, according to the Dalai Lama, the purpose of life is to be happy. So, and that really reduces it to a very simplistic level. But at the same time, everybody's like, yes, but you can't be happy because I got a million reasons why I can't be happy. But yes,
I would say that with Saturn Uranus combined with Neptune in Pisces is you need what it's calling us to do at this time, to be accountable for, is not only the science of achievement, but the art of fulfillment at the same time. So we need to learn the science of achievement. We need to master that, right?
Yes.
But we also, at the same time, need to cultivate and learn and embrace the art of fulfillment, which could be, you know, happiness is not a very sustainable state, but fulfillment is.
Well, yeah. Well, the goal of the yogi is contentment in all circumstances. That's what Yogananda's teacher.
So we're just using different semantics and different.
Yeah. I don't mean happy like walk around like you're stoned.
Right.
I mean, you know,
we can have brief moments of satori or enlightenment, right, to give us a glimpse of ultimate reality now and then, and we all need to have that. And I think this Saturn Uranus is going to break us or force us into that, right? Or we get a breakthrough in meaning, right? If we don't get that mystical experience, that's something we're not ready for. But I do think ultimately, right, you know, it starts with being here now, which goes back to what you initially.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that the spirituality quality of the boomer generation needs to be resurrected, like the judgment card, you know, because there was something good about it. It lost its way, but essentially, there's a power in that. I mean, I always think about that joke where the wealthy man sees all the fishermen on the beach, and have you ever heard that one?
Yeah, I've heard that. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, they're all having a party, and the guy's like, you know, you guys are having a party and everything, but you know what? If you took all your boats and you made a cooperative and you did this and you did that and you make all this money, and the guy says to him, yeah, and what would we do? We'd be having a party on the beach to celebrate all the stuff that you just told us we do, but we're having a party on the beach now.
Now,
So
right.
I mean, so one of the things that qualifies for this age is everybody wants everything now, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. So there's a
Yeah.
whole lot of self-acceptance that is necessary.
Right. I think this Saturn Uranus to me also brings up another theme that a lot of people are feeling, that life, as the construct of life as we're living it now, is false. You know, fake news, junk news, um, getting pursuing degrees that have no that don't present any viable, credible financial future or career path. You know, and people are craving meaning and purpose, because I think
Yes.
also Saturn. Look, I think Saturn Uranus is very much saying, you know, I need a sustainable path that gives me a sense of meaning and purpose, or can provide at least the basis of that. And I think that's all being questioned, and and people feel really they're feeling, look, Saturn Uranus is certainly about feeling uncertain, but what's making us feel very uncertain about life is that the the values, especially the establishment values that are being pushed down, right, our throats through the internet, through social media, are essentially false or unsustainable or ultimately unsatisfying, that don't add to any meaning and purpose. And that's where that fourth spiritual awakening comes in. And I say, I think there's a merger here that's happening and will dominate the remainder of the decade being 2021 to 2030. And that's again connected to what I see and what you see, I think, as well as with the judgment card.
Well, I hope so, because I mean, no,
You hope so?
no, I really do, because I think people are realizing that a lot of what they thought they believed was voices from the past that they've incorporated, that are, you know, in psychology and psychiatry, the goal is to be your authentic self. And I think that this time period and the judgment card is all about getting in touch with your authentic self. That's what all of Amy and my work is all about, is we try to eliminate, that's what you're talking about, crypto, right? It eliminates the middle bank. We try to
Right.
eliminate the middle gypsy for readings. You know, why go to someone else for readings when no one knows you better than yourself?
Right.
That's why
Right.
we, you know, when I first met
Right.
Amy, she's studying astrology. I learned about astrology. I was studying her. So,
Right.
so what we're talking about is self-empowerment, which might be a
Right.
negative word for you younger people. You know, it might sound too much like self-help book, you know, but that's what we're talking about here, is empowering the individual in a very Aquarian Leo polarity way.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, this is very much connected with the New Thought movement, right? The
Yeah.
Higher Thought movement. It's really a spiritualist movement that was part of the third spiritualist awakening that occurred around the early 20th century, late 19th century, early 20th century.
But
And and
are you
so
talking about the spiritualist movement?
yeah, well, so the third spiritual awakening. I believe there was a
After
third.
World War II? I
Yeah,
mean,
no, it's actually
after World
around
War
the time
One.
of World War
Yes,
One,
yes,
around the time of World War, but it
100%.
goes into just into the early depression, into the depression. So
Right.
that period. And, you know, that's when you saw mediumship and, you know,
Yes.
Houdini and all of that come to a head. And that's also when, by the way, Halloween, right? The first Halloween ball was in 1929. Actually, it was 1922, somewhere in the 20s. I actually wrote an article. I have the chart of it, but that
I
was
think you
part of
should
this
have a magazine.
awakening. What?
Yeah. I think you should do a magazine. Because you do these amazing articles. No, we're talking about you doing publishing. Well, you know, because all these amazing young people, men, died in World War One.
Right. And
Like,
that's where the mediumship and physical
yes,
mediumship. See,
yes,
it was ectoplasm and people coming out of the ceiling who passed on, who then
yes,
sat in a chair and people would shake their hand and talk to them. And then they
yes,
would go back up and they have scientists there and they had teams of scientists. They filmed it, they recorded it.
yep,
I mean, this is just amazing stuff. And that was part of that awakening movement, that spiritual movement. And it was also happening, of course, in Europe. So this
yes.
new
They
thought
lost.
philosophy is
Yes, they
very much
lost.
connected with this awakening process of connected to the resurrection and, you know, the judgment that follows. All of that is really that metaphysical positive thinking, law of attraction, healing, life force, creative visualization. all that stuff, right? Personal power, that all really comes in that period. That comes together. The forefathers who established that. And now what's interesting, it was just seeing with the Neptune and Pisces and the Saturn Uranus, right? It's pushing us, right, to a more, it's pushing us into another awakening. So we're on the press, we're in it. I think the awakening started.
No, I think so too. And you know, I did something called the Psychic Circle, which is sort of like I improved the Ouija. Amy and I improved the Ouija board, and now it's called the Enchanted Spell Board and the Psychic Circle. And those all happened when people were aching for their deceased relatives. And I think the fact that people have been allowed to die alone during COVID is one day going to be considered as along the lines of the Holocaust. And I think pretty soon you're going to have people trying to get in touch with people that died alone through mediums, through Ouija boards, through the Psychic Circle and the Enchanted Spell Board. You know, I think people are going to want to get in touch with the spiritualism awakening that I think is going to come because these people died alone. And you know, as we have a show every Monday on Zoom called Ask the Oracles. We get asked about somebody died, how do they feel about being dead? A lot, because a lot of people are losing a lot of people now to this horrible disease. It's not the flu, bro, as you used to say with, right, with the pictures of the spraying all that stuff. And the other question they all ask is about how they can get their own business, because just like what you said before, people do not want to be in a position where other people have power over them, where they can be fired.
Well, that could be the awakening too. They want personal power.
Yes.
Right. Starting your own business is one of the most powerful things you can do to empower yourself against any future, or mitigate, in other words, for growth. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, in fact, you could say being in business for yourself is a spiritual process, is a spiritual commitment, is a spiritual path. It's very much connected with the, what's that cycle, the hero's journey, if you will.
Yes, yes, right. From oh my God, he's so amazing.
Joseph hero, Campbell, right?
Joseph Campbell. But the thing to remember with the hero's journey is always the that's what I think when you know you're getting close, when the monsters keep getting worse and worse.
That's right.
And then when they get really, really bad and you realize that you're the monster, that's when you're about to, that's the judgment card, is when you realize you're the monster. That's next to the goal.
Right. Well, that's the shadow, right?
Right. That's what's stopping you the most is you being afraid. I mean, no one's going to stop you more if you're going to be a creative person than yourself saying, well, I can't do it, or else they won't like it.
Well, you know, when you really don't understand that, you know, the law of attraction, right? If you really don't understand what that is, you are what you think, right? You are what you believe. You are what your values are, not what you think you are. So so in other words, if you're a lot of, with that book came out and it was very popular for a brief time, and then it phased out. But I think what's important here is that that type of spiritual awakening principle that started that, law of attraction. And by the way, that law of attraction was very much connected with what is taught in Freemasonry. Of course, that's like a secret you're not supposed to know, but it all comes out of that as well. And who were the founding fathers of this country?
Freemasons, every one of them.
That's right. Well, and how many presidents in the White House were Freemasons?
Most of them. I can't think of one. But the interesting thing is that Kabbalah is also very much about the Sumerian stuff, the Zechariah Sitchin stuff.
Right. And by the way, Kabbalah has its own, I would say, new thought movements in it, because I went to the Kabbalistic school in Manhattan. I had a number of rabbis, teaching me very metaphysical principles. One of the things about Judaism that I learned was that it's a completely astrologically solar lunar based religion.
But they won't admit it until you're in Kabbalah.
Of course. And I said, and actually I was cool with it. I was like, wow, this is brilliant. And a lot of the people sitting there who were, let's say, conservative Jews who were being initiated were in complete shock and disbelief for weeks.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was just like, don't you find that liberating and empowering that there is some cosmological, metaphysical and cosmological structure behind the religion that gives it a layer of depth outside the Bible. And some of them were very disturbed by that.
Well, because they are very patriarchal. They want to think there's God up there.
I see. With the white beard.
With the white beard pulling the puppet strings.
Right.
In this way, they can come home and beat their wives and be all kinds of perverted about it because it's the patriarch. God is a man. He's up there. He knows everything. The planets dance to his tune. They don't want to think that the planets have any influence of their own. Right. You know, I mean, this is my opinion. I don't want to offend.
Well, you were raised Jewish, correct?
They tried.
They tried, but I'm saying, and your wife's Jewish? She was raised Jewish?
She was raised without religion. It's fascinating.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I didn't know, but I'm just saying it's interesting that you were raised in that culture to some degree, right? And you could recognize what I'm saying. Someone who
definitely. And one of the books I talked about today and the 10 most the books that affected me was the Bible, because in Brooklyn Technical High School in my honor English class, we studied the Bible for a full year as a secular book. You could never do it again today. And it really prepared me for the Zecharia Sitchin work, because a lot of his stuff talks about the Bible. But think about the first 12 lines of Genesis are taken from the Sumerian, and the way Zecharia Sitchin started his whole journey throughout his whole life was he raised his hand and stood up and it says Nephilim. It says gods in plural in Hebrew.
Right.
And they told him, basically sit down, shut up, and get the screw you, get the hell out of here. And it started his whole journey because it was talking about the God, small g, of our fathers, because they lived for more than one lifetime. So their fathers had known the same gods. It's very Star Trek. It's really Star Trek. The origins of man. And Zecharia Sitchin came up with this unified field theory of the origins of life. Well, you know about it. You know about UFOs. You're big on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we could talk about UFOs too, because Saturn Uranus is very much connected with UFOs. Right. In fact, maybe next time I'll present this, I'll have a detailed historical set of events for each Saturn Uranus alignment. But going back to 47, every time we've had major developments of disclosure or UFO activity, high strangeness, that was documented that we can account for in government files, a majority of that activity occurred during Saturn Uranus alignments. And therefore we do know what's happening this June, right? With the disclosure.
Unless they squash it, you never know with the new administration. Well,
no, they can't, because Trump basically pushed it through, and it's something that cannot easily be reversed. There's full. So in other words, I'm trying to remember the Florida governor who he called
DeSantis.
No, the other one. The one that was accused of being gay. I mean, it's essentially like who was the one he was going against?
Rick Scott was the governor.
No. The senator of Florida, junior senator. I think it's a junior senator.
Rubio.
At any rate, what?
Mark Rubio.
Mark Rubio was behind getting So in other words, accountability. Basically, they forced the Pentagon, the Senate Intelligence Committee, forced Mark Rubio set up a program to get that got initialized and approved by Trump. So it was a joint political venture to get the Pentagon. The Pentagon has it has an ET division now that deals with this, and they have to be accountable. So the Department of Defense, or Defense Intelligence, has to report to the Senate committee, and the first report that will go public will be on June 25th, 2021, during this Saturn Uranus square. Now, right, the Department of the Defense Intelligence is required and mandated to get intelligence from the CIA, the NSA. They have to, right? They can't say no. They can't say, no, we're not going to give that to you. Okay. They are required. So this is the Pentagon, right? Not the CIA, the Pentagon. And there will be two versions of the report. There'll be the classified and there'll be the non-classified. But here's the point. I'm sure a lot of people on that Senate Intelligence Committee have not been initiated into UFOs, and they soon will be. And once it gets out, right? Once that document gets presented both the classified and declassified, there's no going back.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of people walking around with very strange looks on their faces.
Absolutely. I believe there will be a form of, there's going to be a set of a very shocking, right? Very shocking information going to be presented to them. And it'll be like, wow, this has been going on for what, 70 years? And I'm just reading about this now. And I have the highest, second highest level of classification.
Well, they're always afraid. They're always, they're always afraid of what happened on December 6th. They're always afraid of the people rising up and going crazy. And from a religious standpoint, they have always been afraid that if people realize that we have anything in our bodies that are connected to aliens, it would just, like you said, talk about the judgment card. Oh my God.
Right, right. And I wanted to I'm glad you got there, because I said, well, sounds very connected to judgment. There's no doubt about this, because so it's basically this 180-day deadline. So I'll just, I put an article in the Global Transformation Astrology Group, and the 100-day deadline for the UAP Disclosure Report, Consolidated Appropriations Act 2021, and it is going to provide very definitive information, right, that will deal with the unidentified aerial phenomenon data and intelligence reporting that will be presented to the intelligence panel. And they have, in other words, the Department of Defense will be pulling this from the FBI and all other agencies that have investigated intrusions of unidentified aerial phenomenon over restricted United States airspace.
Wow. Well, I mean, I hope it happens. I personally I think we've talked about this before. I personally saw one when I was 16, and I was a trained observer from the Civil Air Patrol. Mm-hmm. And my friend who was with me he went on to become a jet pilot for the Navy. Right. He used to land on carriers.
Exactly. So, like, here's the thing. I'm sure many of these pilots, military and civilian pilots, amongst other people in the government, have been told to not comment on it or to keep what they have reported classified. Now this is all going to bust out in the open starting on June 25th at 12 noon, because the deadline started on December 27th when Trumpzilla signed the bill, and he stated 180 days. So a lot of people say Trump's bad. Well, for the metaphysical community out there that keeps criticizing Trump, just know one thing. He has been the only president that has pushed this alien disclosure, right? ET disclosure more than any other president in history. In fact, Obama reversed everything on that process. So it's going to be interesting to see how the White House deals with this.
That's what I'm saying. I hope they do it. I mean, he was also very good on human trafficking. That's another thing he doesn't get credit for.
Oh, absolutely. But going back to the awakening, the judgment, right? Judgment, the accountability, right? I just think this is all connected to the Saturn Uranus aspect.
Yes, and right? the squares are, it's like having a piece of sand in an oyster. Let's hope it produces a pearl.
Well, I do think, see, the reason I'm confident it will is because it's happening under Saturn Uranus. And I've done enough historical research, and I have all the major events, all the big ones and major minor ones that are documented. I have a chart for each one, and I ran the Alfie research module on it, the Air Software by Alfie Lavoie. And it came up consistently when looking at all that data, Saturn, Uranus, Saturn, Uranus, Saturn, Uranus. And the fact that this is coming out during Saturn, Uranus means there's a lot more that's going to come out than just what's in that report. There's going to be a lot of blowback. Like, people are going to say, you know what? I was a former admiral on the USS Enterprise, and I'm going to tell you the real story. Right. This happened before the those videos that came out. They'll be talking about events, and that is something that is going to shock everyone.
Well, and that Israeli, the guy who was head of Israeli intelligence, he's already started the ball rolling.
Absolutely, right? He must have known. He's certainly in the loop about what's going on in Washington.
Yeah. I mean, he is the loop.
Right. So, I mean, we're going to get more, look, there's going to be a lot more coming out about this. And so I'm very excited about that, especially with the fact that Israel is already, this ex-Space Force, right?
Yeah.
And he said Trump knows about it. He didn't even say they're here and I know about it. He says Trump knows about it. And that was in December 10th, right? When he made that statement. And then Trump followed up with that executive order in late December.
Well, but the thing that scares
they're
me though,
connected.
yes, but the thing that scares me is that there are people that hate Trump so blanketly.
Well, look, that's to be honest with you, I think that's neither here nor there, because history, it's sort of like
is made by the winners. History is made by the winners.
Right. Well, you know what I'll say? It's sort of like in Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is more like a voting machine in terms of day-to-day price, but in terms of the long-term value of Bitcoin, right? Its true value, which ranges anywhere from 347,000 per Bitcoin to several million, right? That is more of a weighing machine. So we have like a voting machine and a weighing machine, short-term voting machine, long-term weighing machine, right? And so I look at it the same way in terms of how people look at Trump. I mean, look at Harry Truman. He had dismal polls and he's considered one of the best presidents.
Yeah, they hated him too. That's true.
They hated him, but he did so much for the country and he was a Democrat. And yes. people accuse me at least saying, you're just a true Republican pretending he's a centrist. No.
And I'm a registered member of the Green Party, which every once in a while makes me feel very odd, but it's true.
And embarrassed.
You're right, exactly. And but the thing is, when you call them as you sees them, you're right. Going to get hit by people who. But what I was saying is that there are some people that hate him so much that anything like if forgive my language, if he shit gold, they'd say, oh my God, he's screwing around with the price of gold.
Right. Well, I can't take those. We can't take those people seriously anymore.
They're
fringe, extreme partisan, radical liberals that are infected by the deep state mime, the virus.
But they mean well, though. I think they do. I mean, I think a lot of them do.
Yeah, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yes, 100%.
Right. So
yeah.
I don't take that seriously. I'm looking at it from a larger macro perspective, and I'm saying there's something connected with this awakening, Bitcoin, this disclosure, this 180-day executive order disclosure to the Senate Intelligence Committee. All of this is somehow connected, and we're going to see this unfold in unpredictable ways that are going to be very disruptive.
It's the end. Uranus is disruption. Aquarian is disruption. It's the end of centralization. It's the end of the patriarchy.
That's right. Because the centralization
is like this.
Right. The centralization of control and power by the fossilized patriarchy is being busted up, right? Hidden in plain sight. And what they're doing in Davos, or I should say Singapore, right, is a last hurrah moment in order to keep the financial oligarchs in power as we move to this new technocracy. And that is what they're most threatened by. And that new technocracy includes ET. It includes a fourth spiritual awakening.
But I have a lot of respect for them. You got to respect. That's why, they pulled off a coup in this country or whatever. A lot of people think they pulled off a coup. There's people that can do all kinds of things. So that's why, I mean, the great thing about Bitcoin, I know this is ridiculous, but one of the reasons it's so valuable is because of its limits. There's Uranus and Saturn, in Saturn is limits. And one of the reasons is there's only so many. So that's one of the reasons it has a finite value as opposed to fiat currency, which has infinite limits, which is not so good when you're talking about a currency. So I think that, yes, they are fighting it, but I think we have to give them credit that they might pull something off that we can't see.
Oh, there's no doubt. I'm not saying they're fading off into the sunset. This is the last hurrah. This is, remember, the last hurrah, the last insurgency in Iraq was the one that caused the most fatalities for American soldiers.
Yes.
Remember? So Fallujah, right. So what I'm getting at is this is Hitler's last hurrah in the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah.
Right? Was right. He almost won the war.
Yes, he did.
He was losing, and then all of a sudden he was on the verge of winning, And this is sort of that same look. More American soldiers lost their life in that battle than they did in the entire war. And
Yes, they
America
did.
won every battle, by the way. In every major battle in the war was won by the United States, right? So the
They
United
almost
States,
lost that one.
they almost lost that one. That's what I'm getting at, right? They almost, and we're going to have that moment. And that's why it's so important that we take the concept coming from the judgment card, the fourth spiritual awakening, and put that in our lives in some way within the context of where we're at going forward, and not completely be, not to give up, right?
Right.
Not to give up. And look, they know what's coming. And, what I see, what they know is coming is the fact that we are on the verge of a financial collapse. There's just no way. Look, if you go back to 2008, 2009, we had that Saturn-Uranus opposition. So what happens during that period, right? Do you remember?
Yeah, you have the derivative crisis.
Right. You have the derivative crisis, right? So, and that was here. So I'm just going to bring it up here from current. So look at that. Saturn-Uranus alignment, right?
Oh my
2008
God.
implosion.
Wow.
Like it's almost like right on a day. I mean, this happened.
Yeah.
It's like, and then by
Yeah.
the time November comes around, we have they're calling it the shock market. So they know they've got to reset it, but they don't realize that the wealth is now shifting away from the oligarchy, the financial corptocracy oligarchy, to something completely different. And that's where I think people need to be aware of.
Do you think they're investing in Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies?
Of course.
Well, I that was a loaded question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They know where it's going.
Right.
They need, here's the problem. They don't know how to come out with a centralized a centralized cryptocurrency blockchain that can compete with this decentralized blockchain. And that's the problem.
But isn't China going to try their own? I heard.
Yeah, they're coming out with the DCEP, DCEP, that will be deployed shortly after, in September, shortly after the Singapore, when they sign off, where Kamala Harris is a keynote speaker, along with Prince Charles, by the way.
Yes, of course.
Right. So she's the one to watch, not Biden.
Well, you always said it was going to be her. You always.
Oh, yeah. I think, yeah. I mean, I'm going to hold back for now about where I think she's going to do, but this is all connected to the Saturn-Uranus alignment. So look, when people say everything is fine, right? We know with Saturn-Uranus, everything is not fine.
Do you see this comment? It says from Renee Dower, the DCEP, is that like in Deception?
Yeah.
That was great.
That was great. She always makes good comments, by the way.
That was a really good one.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, look, we had the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy, right, which triggered a global recession where the credit markets froze. It's very interesting when you have Deutsche Bank, which is, I think Deutsche Bank's 5 to 6 times larger than Lehman.
But what's their stock at? What? Because didn't it go down to like $5-6?
$6. It went from 160 down to $6. It's the most systemically dangerous bank in the world, right? And they came out with an article stating that central banks need to get a crypto position, that it would be good for large banks, they're called banks that fall under the umbrella of the Bank of International Settlements, to move quickly into crypto. So they're already telling us, right? This is the only way they can prevent a Deutsche Bank breakdown or implosion.
You're right.
So they know it's coming, and the Saturn-Uranus is going to destabilize the system as we get closer and closer and closer to that point. In fact, I believe the market's peaking like right now, like we're hitting, we're at the top part of the peak. And a lot of it has to do with this. Look how much global liquidity they injected. Look, this was COVID, and they come in and they just push the market up, right? So this is Wall Street. This is Main Street. This is you and me.
Well, do you think that the global liquidity proxy chart is I have a cat who I love more than anything, but I hate to use it. Do you think this is the dead cat bounce, which is what they
Yeah,
call?
absolutely. Because look, this would be an idea. Look, the fact that look, you get 2020, right? In fact, it happened in October of 2019 with the repo market started crashing. So Main Street is already in a deep recession while Wall Street is going through the biggest boom. When's the last time we saw that happen?
2008.
There you go. And 2008 is when we had what? Saturn Uranus.
Right. Yeah.
It's totally shocking when you read the Woke Astrologer magazine and you don't see any of this being talked about here.
You're talking about the mountain astrologer?
Yes. I'm sorry. I thank you for correcting me. I'm so used to calling it the Woke Astrologer, which I get. By the way, folks, I do get it. I read it. I read to find out what's not happening, what's not going to happen.
We advertise it. We advertise there, and we have a good friend who works there. But
right.
I think they should have you. I mean, once
no, my articles would never get published. If I talked about any of this stuff like we're talking about today, that's why we do these videos, because people say, I read the Woke Astrologer, William, right? And none of what you're talking about is getting out there in there. And I'm like, because it would be contrary to the establishment radical liberal agenda.
But they need something to increase their sales, because unfortunately their leader, who was wonderful, passed away, Tim. But the thing is, we were talking about Yogananda and his teacher, Sri Yukteswar, and he said the truth is not afraid of questions. And therefore, if they should have all sides of the spectrum, and you're a very loud voice, and they should have Theodore about global warming and not about
global cooling.
Well, I mean about the fallacy of global warming.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it really offends me. You were saying that Uranus Saturn is all about cancel culture. You can't just say, I'm not going to listen to what you say. It's like a little baby putting their fingers in.
I'm going to deplatform you, dude.
Oh, it's so horrible. It's so cowardly. It's so patriarchal. That's the I don't understand why the women don't get so pissed off about the patriarchy. Is like it refuses to die. It's like hitting.
And the greatest achievement is getting Kamala Harris to lead the patriarchy into this reset.
Right, because they say the devil knows not for whom he works, so she doesn't know who she works for also.
Exactly. Well, I think she does. I just think she's.
Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
I mean, so she's supporting this patriarchal system.
But we have to give her credit.
Impressive.
We have to give her credit. She did what she did. She is who she is.
It's all out on the internet, folks, what she did.
Yes, she is who she is. She did what she did, and you got to give her credit for what she did. Right. And she might be capable of the same spiritual awakening that we're talking about.
Well, I hope you're right. But I don't see it in that chart of hers. I mean, that's maybe another video we could do, just looking at Kamala Harris, who will be the Democratic nominee in 2024.
No, of course, but I have to tell you that I've always resisted. Maybe it's not true anymore. I've always resisted making predictions about the president, because early on, I was told by people who would know that that's a great way to get a little visit from the Secret Service.
Well, she's not president yet, so we can't talk about her. That's why I'm not saying too much about Biden.
I got you.
Yeah.
Because you can't blame him, because what if you were a crazy astrologer who made predictions about the president or somebody, and then took action to make it happen? You know what I mean? That's what they're worried about, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. Look, I totally hear you.
So I don't make presidential predictions for that very reason.
Well, you can. There's a way to do it without getting the Secret Service involved, and I think that we could talk about Kamala. Everybody keeps asking me, William, when are you finally going to do a whole video or write up and video on Kamala?
You never get credit. No. You never get credit. You were saying it was going to be her from, I can't even remember when you didn't say.
Catherine will know. I'll see what she knows the exact date when I went on Coast to Coast. I actually on George Noory, January 2019. She just let me know. I went on Coast to Coast and talked with George Noory about this in detail. When I was also at the New York Open Center, I have it all on video,
Right.
And I talked about a crisis and everything that would happen in 2020, and Kamala Harris would be key. She would be key. The deep state, she is the deep state agent. She is the Obama 2.0 agent that is going to basically enforce, implement, and roll out their plans post Davos, post
Right.
Summit.
And she is the person that couldn't get 2%. So she couldn't be in the debates. And she's now the vice president of the United States.
Right.
And,
there she is. It should really say deep state, not police state.
okay. Yeah. Because they don't like the police.
Well, because the deep state would look, the fact of the matter is, even in the astrological community or even in the tarot community, I mean, I'm much more sympathetic and to the tarot community.
Tarot people are very nice. They are
very nice people, right? So, but the word deep state is almost like when you touch on it and you describe what it is and the shadow banking system and shadow governance and all that stuff, that it's like we're almost talking about alien abduction, right? It's that fringe.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. Yes, but how many things have been shown to be true? Like the wonderful governor of my state, Governor Cuomo, has been found to have hubris worse than Elliot Spitzer, in the sense that he wrote a book about what a great job he did during the pandemic, and now they're talking about getting rid of him because people were killed in nursing homes, and covered it up.
Right, and he will get away with it.
I hope not.
Well, okay, my prediction is he gets away with it and it fades off.
Okay.
You know why? Because the rule of law is no longer applying. I mean, they wouldn't even have a second impeachment if the rule of law applied. So
true.
They're going to let governors get away with it. They're not the rule of law, Saturn, Uranus, hubris, right? When you do not follow the rule of law, whether it's the rule of law from the highest courts or from the Constitution or from God's rule of law, that's hubris. And the consequences of hubris is coming. And that is the judgment. The consequences.
100%. That is the judgment card. That's 100% it. Well, also, I tell people, it's not the Constitution did not fail us. We failed the Constitution because all those state legislators didn't do what they're supposed to do.
Right. It's only from the state legislature that can change the election laws that resulted, right? The fact that it was the courts and not the state legislature within days before the election at the last minute changed the laws that enabled mail-in voting that could occur all the way up until November 10th. No, December 10th. I was correct the first time. From November 8th to December 10th, they could continue to count mail-in ballots all the way in. That would then determine the final number. All of those votes, 92% of all of those votes in the key battleground states for mail-in, all were for Biden. That's impossible.
That's just 100% impossible. And if there's a guy named Garrett Ziegler, I don't know if you ever seen it. I think it's Garrett MZ, or Garrett Michael Z is, I think, his Telegram thing. And he worked for Navarro. And they were telling Trump, forget about all this, election fraud, all this other stuff. Just go with the constitutional route. And they tried to get Sidney Powell and General Flynn involved with all this stuff. Garrett Ziegler was the one who got Sidney Powell into the White House to talk to him.
Right.
But Trump said it had to be Rudy running the show because he's a loyal person and he's known Rudy his whole life.
Well, here's the bottom line. The state senates, the Supreme Courts, right? The Supreme Court for each state said there is no standing, even though they do agree that it's unconstitutional, the actual vote numbers, right? In terms of the mail-in votes, where Trump was ahead by 500,000 votes, 300 plus thousand votes in each of those states, somewhere between 300 plus to 500,000 plus votes in those 7 respective battleground states, right? Even though they agree that it was unconstitutional, that there was no standing to review and audit that procedure and eliminate it. In other words, if you just eliminated all the mail-in ballots and said, okay, we're just going to stick to the number based on when the final votes were all tallied outside of the mail-in votes, you would have a Trump landslide.
Well, that's what I'm come back to with the spiritual awakening, and the truth is not afraid of questions. Because to tell the president who's running for president that you don't have standing in the election for president, talk about truth being stood on its head. If he doesn't have standing, who has standing? I mean, he's the president of the United States. It's his election.
Well, that's the Saturn Uranus. The Saturn Uranus saying we're not operating under the rule of law, under the confines or constructs
unfortunately,
of the U.S. Constitution, and even the courts, even the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
where there's no standing, that we don't review the votes, we don't at least audit it and then decide.
Because the spiritual awakening has to happen, and you have people who, whether they've been bribed or whether they actually believe what they're doing, or they hate him so much that they'll do anything to get him out. I mean, there's a lot of
I'll tell you what it is. I mean, yes, they hate him, and that's part of it, but it all had to do with one thing: to remove Trump in order to get a president and a vice president who's soon going to be president, right, to rubber stamp and implement and roll out what is going to be agreed in Singapore, the Davos meeting, the Great Reset Initiative. That's the title of it, folks, right?
Yeah.
The Great Reset Initiative. Trump would never hand over the financial and political power and sovereignty of the United States to a bunch of globalists. So that is the reason they needed to get him out. It wasn't just about hate. Yes, they hated him, they resented him, but it had to do with a larger plan. And 99% of the astrological world, metaphysical world, and I would say a good 90% of the civilian the secular world is just clueless and hasn't put this together, is clueless about this.
Well, that's why I say they both won and China won. Everybody won this election.
Right. Everyone won, especially China.
Right. And then, because Biden's the president, so he won. Kamala won. She's the vice president. Trump won supposedly because he got the votes. And then China won because, I don't know, they're China. They've been going around the world buying up ports all over the world, and the Silk Road Initiative. And
well, they have a control file on everybody. I mean, the fact of the matter is Mitch McConnell's wife is Chinese, and she comes from a very high up there family in the CCP and the Chinese military, very powerful family. And they both started a business together, an import, export business, trade business. You could look into this. And let me tell you something. There's a lot of articles on the fact that she made all those arrangements. She was part of making those arrangements with the Bidens, Hunter Biden, right? All of that, where you have people that they're on the payroll and have a control file connected to them that the CCP and the Chinese military intelligence is behind. So this is not conspiracy theory. This is all out there. Just read the articles in the Epoch Times. I'm not talking so much to you. I'm just saying to the audience here that's skeptical, and the pervasive skepticism to the real truth is going to be part of this awakening and part of what this judgment card, right, means for the world.
Well, I'm still a rainbow pooping baby, unicorn riding baby boomer, and I have a hope that the spiritual awakening will somehow reach everybody, not just the people on our side. And everybody will be trying to make the world a better place.
Well, let me ask you a question. Okay, you have family members that are true blue Biden thumping Kamala, supporters.
I don't really have that big a family.
Right, but the small family, do you really think they'll switch and change even with this awakening? I'm just want your opinion.
I don't know, because I've seen, like I said, back in the 60s, if you believe what the government and what the news was telling you, you were considered an outcast moron. And and no one would pass the joint to you, so
yeah. I mean, I'm not so convinced that the leadership of the astrological community who's leading these organizations are going to flip. Even if we have a catastrophic depression, we have a full-scale high-intensity conflict in the South Pacific with China, and a whole host of other things that follow from that, I just still think they're going to still be radical liberal agenda regardless, even if it means the complete demise of those organizations as a result.
But that's what I mean. I consider you one of the leading astro. No, I do. Yes, there's organizations, and organizations like that are very 11th house, very Aquarian, very, people getting together to have the authority of numbers. But I think this is the Aquarian age, so that I think someone like yourself with global transformation astrology, you have just as much chance as the NCGR because you're talking to the people or the American. I mean, I don't even know the name of all the different
The American Federation of Astrologers, and then
yes,
there's
AFA.
ISAR.
But because I mean, the astrologers might want to be part of it because they want to sell books and they want to speak at these things. And I learned early on they don't want to have anything to do with me because, you know, I wasn't talking about imaginary Uranian planets and
right,
you know, and all this other stuff.
I was just the real problem for them was you were successful. You were a commercial success, which is a major threat to their poor self-esteem.
And a major astrologer who we all know his name told me exactly that back in. He was like, "Why do you want to speak at these organizations?"
Right. No. My thing about all of this is the fact that you have young people, you have people who are watching this that are looking for some type of direction and looking at some of those people as leaders and are not finding that because there's a complete disconnect between what they say and publish and ultimately what is really happening day to day in their lives.
But that's their fault. You know, this is why I have the issue with, you know, people like Theodore saying, you know, the boomers this, the boomers that. Yeah, it's like Molon Labe, what they said about when Xerxes tried to take the weapons away from the 300. They said, Molon Labe, come and take them. This, you know, well, you baby boomers, you haven't done this, you haven't done that, you haven't. I was like, come and take it if you want to do it. So I think the astrologers now have you out there, they have Theodore out there. They can do their due diligence and find out what's really going on. They don't have to join these little organizations. They're not little. You know,
I would say, look, you know, this magazine only gets 15,000 people, and I happen to know, I happen to know I have a much larger audience than 15,000 people, and I'm sure you do as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've sold hundreds of thousands of copies of my book. I mean, I've sold over 3 million copies of my books around the world in 18 languages. But I never, you know, you always think it could be better, but at the same time, I don't think that everybody knows that I wrote the book. It's the information that I'm trying to get out there. It's not like I want my name to be.
Absolutely. So I think the key thing with Saturn Uranus, I'm going to go back to that and finish up here, is you know, the fact that we're seeing a big disconnect, like it's in the metaphysical world, the leadership in the metaphysical world, whoever they may be, you know, I'm talking about the people on the boards of directors. We're seeing it with the financial media. We're seeing it with the establishment media. There's a massive disconnect, and that disconnect, right, like a Titanic, like Titanic shift of plates separating now. And there's a vast gap. There's a gap that's becoming deeper and vaster as we go deeper into this year, as we go further into this year, into 2022. And I think that is what people are looking for. They're obviously looking for guidance. Like, what do I do?
Yes.
I mean,
oh yeah.
Right. What do we do? I mean, yeah, I can see what you're talking about, but what do I do? Right. And obviously
100%.
They're not going to hear it from.
That's why they should join Global Transformational Astrology. I'm sure. No, I'm serious. I am serious because I have friends that were on television and had shows. They were in the news business. And I said to them, every day it's like you guys back up a garbage truck and dump a load of shit in my living room, and you don't tell me what I could do about it. If the news program that comes out, and I'm talking about 20 years ago, I said the news program that comes out and tells me what I could do about it, that's what I want to watch. And I think that's what's happening, and that's why your stuff is just going to grow and grow and grow, because you actually give people an action plan.
Yeah, I try to, at least. And again, when going outside of just crypto, saying, listen, you're going to either have a breakdown or a breakthrough, because when someone's going through a transformation, right, it looks very much like a breakdown before they have the breakthrough. And that's where the resistance is. I don't want to have the breakdown. I just want the breakthrough without the breakdown. But they look the same. The process is the same. One results in a complete collapse. The other one results in a transformation. And that's happening to the financial, economic, scientific sector. That's happening academically, but it's also happening to all of us personally.
Right. And as we're all monks in the Himalayan caves now, and we're all, you know, the only thing that's keeping everybody alive is their savings and their money. So I think everybody's going to be a lot more focused on on their finances. It's
Right.
no longer going to be a fringe thing. And what you're saying is crypto as a distributed, it's not a distributed denial of service. It's a distributed acceptance of service.
That's right.
You're
Everybody is equal. Even the billionaire and the poor kid who has a crypto wallet, an atomic wallet on his iPhone in Africa are all equal players in this market.
That's amazing. So would you tell people to take their money out of gold and put it into crypto, or do you think it's a balanced portfolio,
No.
or you can't make a generalization like that?
Remember, they're two different things, right? They both have similarities and differences. So the thing about gold is it's the insurance behind the insurance behind the insurance.
Right. So it's like reinsurance, like in Bermuda. Bermuda is the capital of reinsurance, which is a whole industry that nobody knows anything about.
Right. And by the way, Bermuda has substantial gold holdings.
Wow.
Right. So a lot of the Cayman Islands, right, substantial gold holdings, because that is considered insurance against all contracts. So look, if you have insurance, that's a contract, but what insures the insurance, right?
Right.
Ultimately, when you pin it down from all the different contracts and agencies, it comes down to gold, baby, gold.
The Sumerians, back to gold.
Right. Back to the Sumerians, right? So gold is different. It functions as a store of value that will remain, right? It's, in other words, it's like a time machine. If you buy $1 million or $100,000 or $100 worth of gold, it will have that same purchasing power 1,000,000 years from now.
Yeah.
That in itself makes it, unique. Now, Bitcoin is replicating very much what gold is. In fact, I would say the connection with Bitcoin and gold is almost the same.
Interesting.
Right? And that is how we have to look at it. And when it comes to these other coins like Ethereum, that's much more akin to silver and to palladium and to platinum and other, because they have real world applications and they're necessary in order for, and especially with the world where a technological world requires massive amounts of silver, platinum, and all these other different metals.
Yes.
And so that's how we have to look at the alternative crypto market. I don't like the term altcoin, but we have to use that so people understand.
Right.
That Ethereum is an altcoin to Bitcoin, but Ethereum is much more closer to silver, because silver, the need for silver, if you're going to have this green revolution that Biden's going to push out and Kamala's going to roll out, right, then you're going to need far more silver than they're mining right now. And right now, but what's happening with silver, the price is staying steady, right?
Because that's the banks. That's the banks are like this.
Right. They're suppressing the price right now because, right. So the point I'm trying to get at is that we got to look at these things differently. And I would say to someone, you need to diversify. So, I recommend, conservatively speaking, like if you want to be really conservative, go 80% gold and 20% Bitcoin. So if you have $100,000 to invest, put 80% in gold, 20%, 20,000 in crypto, and let it ride. Or someone who's somewhat more in the middle of the road, 50-50, right? So I'm just saying, now this is not financial advice.
No, of course not.
This is something, each person has to look at. And of course, I have to say you should go to your financial advisor before you do any move, and talk to your CPA as well, because there are tax implications at some point. So look, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just telling you what I have done is make sure that I have putting my hard-earned money in both those assets as a store of value, one based on the past and the other one, Bitcoin, based on the future.
That's so Aquarian. The past and the future is totally Aquarian.
Absolutely. So, I think we covered a lot of ground, and we definitely go back. It started off with crypto and we're back to crypto again. And I think that crypto is going to initiate us into the Aquarian age more than probably anything else.
I think you're right. And as someone with 3 planets in Aquarius myself, and had that whole conjunction happen on my birthday, the 22nd, it feels good to me. I felt compelled to do it. It was scary because, being a okay boomer, But I highly recommend it because I have that much faith in you, William. You're an amazing as well.
Well,
You're an amazing astrologer. You have a demonstrated track record. I mean, why do you think I get people asking me to write books? Because I sell. They're
Right.
not doing it because they like me.
Right.
I have a track
It's
record.
not because they read your books and go, "Wow, I've changed my life profoundly after reading your books." You know,
they're like
right,
my
yeah.
relatives. They've never read anything I've ever done. The only one
Right.
who's read it is my editor. But no, but it's like you have a track record. You were right about the election. You were right about all this other stuff, and I think that I think you should have a magazine. That's my new thing.
Yeah, well, I'd rather have a membership where
No, that's
I
a
think
magazine.
magazines,
That
as
is.
we understand them, are over. That's
Well,
that's
I
my
guess what I'm trying to say is you have done a new form of the magazine with
Oh,
a subscription service where why should anybody get Time Magazine or even the Wall Street Journal when you have somebody who actually knows what he's talking about on such a broad level with history and the future and astrology and tarot? I mean,
it would
that's
be great if we had a team of people, right, in a type of membership magazine, right,
yeah,
where you know there was consensus, where let's say the rules were if 80% have consensus that this is where things are going to go 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 6 months from now, and that could be put into a membership, into a magazine, a real magazine, right? That is not, doesn't have an agenda or anything like that.
that'd be
Okay.
amazing.
That would absolutely be one of the greatest achievements that astrology could do for the world. And
Well,
that's,
I think you're doing it. I mean, I think you're doing it. I don't think you need anybody else. But that's just you're an Aries. What do you need anybody else for? You know, you guys are like the first sign.
well, I really appreciate that. So I think we're gonna wrap up here.
Okay.
Is there anything you want to talk about in terms of your cards before we end the show?
No, I like I said, we thank you very much for putting up about karma cards and the mindful astrology that's coming out. Anyone who's interested in cooking astrologically, we have Signs and Seasons on HarperCollins, astrological based cookbook, which is actually a really good cookbook. Mindful astrology, little shameless self promotion for my own kind of stuff, and I just hope everybody takes to heart what we've said. That it requires a spiritual transformation, and that requires bravery and a commitment to facing the truth, whatever it is. No more canceling on yourself.
Oh, thank you. That was great. I mean, you know, you really look. You have a track record. You know, a lot of people may not know Monty here, but I know him back from my Long Island days, and he was a major force in the metaphysical scene in the late '80s, all the way through the '90s. And we sort of we sort of, you know, I moved away, but
Yeah.
you know, I moved out. I moved to Manhattan, and then I moved out west after that. But you know, your products were on every shelf of every metaphysical store from New York City, all throughout the island and the East Coast. And so, you know, as someone who's really had a major impact in a bigger way than some astrologers who talk each week on
Yes.
YouTube
Yeah.
or should I say Patreon, you've had
Right.
a much bigger impact in shaping the metaphysical community and accelerating the spiritual awakening than most people out there who have quote unquote big names. So I just want to say that for the
Well, no,
record.
thank you so much. It means so much to me to hear you say it. I mean, we do every once in a while, we'll look at it like the woman you posted about is 22 years old with 1 million TikTok followers.
You're right.
And we'll say, wow. And then we'll realize, you know what? We're partially responsible for that because we got our stuff out there to get people interested in this stuff because we think it helps you. And why should we be surprised when it worked? You know, we wanted people to get into astrology and learn about it and make it easy. So we wanted people to do tarot. So we did the Enchanted Tarot. I mean, our stuff came out in 1988 and 1990. It's still in print because we had the commitment to the spiritual awakening that you're talking about now. So we were ahead of that. And all our work is designed to help people go through their own spiritual awakening because we're all in this together, right?
Absolutely. And so I want to just do my own little plug here on Global Transformation Astrology. I'm just going to show it real quick here. And there's recordings. I do 2 webinars a month plus an Ask Me Anything Q&A hour. So I do actually 3 events. Everything is recorded on video, audio. We have an astrology exchange group. People could submit questions. These are all the different resources. I've published astrological resources along with the
Amazing.
2020 election, AI. I mean, these are whole, in fact, the Chinese New Year date calculation, I went into it. And these articles I put together for the group, and is also very much connected with what's happening. So it's really, it's astrology along with what's happening in the world from an archetypal astrological basis. We have events, a number of events. We have the new moon meditation that we do with a paraliminal. We do it in accordance to the time of the exact new moon in paraliminal. And we put that all together here and plus we have other things. We have the forums and resources. We have a very active activity feed, and we have a lot of brilliant, smart people. So for those of you who for those of you out there saying, hey, I'm not getting it right from what I'm reading or from my organization or group, and I feel that I'm part of that disconnect. I'm feeling the result. Part of my foul mood has to do with the fact that, especially when it comes to astrology and metaphysics, that I'm not getting what I need or not hearing what I need to hear. That's what you may want to consider global transformation astrology.
What do you mean may want to consider? If they don't buy it, they're stupid. I just don't. I mean, that might be my Leo rising, Pluto on the ascendant. But I mean, it's such a bargain. I mean, I try to tell this to people. It's not fortune telling, but it can help you make your fortune.
Absolutely. I mean, so a lot of people have been able to have, people have told me, GTA members, hey, William, you've helped me make a lot of money. I know that was your intention. You weren't giving financial advice, but I put all the different things together and I invested in X, Y, and Z index fund or crypto. And I did very well. And now I'm leaving New York and moving to North Carolina and all that type of stuff. I've heard all the stories. So look, my whole thing is about, transformation, being part of a breakthrough, not the breakdown. I try and give clarity, actionable advice. We have a good community. It's growing. It's not for everyone. People have said, William, I like what you're saying. It's very factual, but it's overwhelming me because it's upsetting my worldview. We have a few of those, but for every one person who makes that statement, we have 5 other people that join that week who are just totally hungry. So we also have this, I guess I stated, this other crypto group that's coming. It's going to be multiple tiered. And one of the reasons I had to do that, just so you know, is the crypto is sort of taking over. It was getting on the verge. So I wanted to pull that back, keep the focus on GTA, and then segment it for those who are not into crypto, but want to know more about gold and what's happening to money, just focusing that on the GTA. So I want to wrap this up and say, I want to thank you, Monty, for being here with me and with what we're doing and with this astrology exchange. And I look forward to the next
thank you, William.
Presentation.
I'm honored to be part of what you're doing, and thank you to Catherine for being the producer. And I just remember, everybody, a lot of people made a lot of money during the Depression, so it's not, you can thrive during hard times, but it requires bravery. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely. Right. We need to cultivate the necessary moral courage to do what is right for us and listen to our own inner voice. And that's what we're really trying to inspire people going forward.
We're not trying to scare anybody. We're trying to inspire people.
Right. All right, Monty. It was a blast as usual.
Thank you, William. Good night.
Be good, my friend. Good night.